I'm glad you skipped my last comment.
So if I don't know if we
What
covered the
was there a
discussion.
comment, Bob? Sorry.
What was that?
Things were getting kind of big because I was like, my gut was saying something's not right.
Any discussions or abstentions? I think we're up to. Lori?
I'm abstaining because I
Okay.
wasn't there.
Years ago.
Thank you.
Karina, I don't know if you want to handle the rest of the vote. It's probably outside of the territory of what I'm supposed to be doing.
Sure, although I'm rusty on my Robert's Rules of Order. So are we ready to have a vote on approving the minutes from the December 11th meeting?
Yes.
Excellent. All those in favor,
Aye.
raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Excellent.
And then you say any opposed? Or
Any opposed?
abstentions?
Or abstentions?
Abstention.
Thank you, Lori.
Hearing none, the movement's so passed. Sorry, I'm really old.
No, I
I've been around a long
appreciate it.
Good.
Hearing
Okay.
none, the movement so passed.
Great. Thanks, everyone. So the next item that we have on the agenda is discussing the action plan talking points. At the last meeting, we talked about trying to align the priorities in the action plan with committee bills and other watershed organization priorities to help inform the legislative presentation talking points. With the meeting materials, I sent out mostly they're just carryover talking points that we used last year, but the bills still seemed relevant in this session. I don't know if folks got a chance to look at that at all. I know the Senator Brock had offered to do some homework on that, but he's not on right now, so that's not going to help us too much. But I can pull up those talking points and potential bills, or if there are bills that people know about that would be good for us to include during the presentations, that would be great to mention here as well. So I'll share my screen with this. So, and if it's hard to read the blue, I can change the colors.
This is Bob Fisher. I thought that was excellent excellent work with the talking points and the relevant bills. Thank you.
Great. So the ones that are on the screen now pertain to the first item on the action plan, which is the invest in natural and developed infrastructure for resilience. So encourage expanding eligibility of the Treasurer's 10% Vermont program. I believe this may have happened since we presented to the at the November meeting. I don't know if anyone can confirm that, but I feel like I heard about something very similar to this recently. So if we don't know for sure, that would be
well. He had this is Carrie. The state treasurer had a joint meeting or press release with the governor's office for flood recovery services using a portion of it's called the percent cash balance. I think it was something on the order of 2.5%, but that was to go towards flood recovery, response recovery. It's not necessarily going to flood resilience or climate resilience work. We have on the House side released a bill, I think it's H586, which has the state treasurer playing a larger convening role in climate infrastructure and resilience funding, as working through VITA, as well as dedicating another portion of the percent cash balance towards flood mitigation, with other funds named for more of climate resilience work.
Okay, great, thank you. we'll add that into the relevant bills piece for sure after this meeting. Yeah, I won't read all of these out loud, but I'll let folks take a look, and I'll scroll down a bit. Say if there are additional bills that you know about that are relevant to highlight, or ones that are no longer relevant, that's all helpful to keep in mind as we're thinking about the more specific requests we can make for the presentations.
Thank you for doing this, Katie. It's very helpful.
I've lost my it's Mark. I've lost my raise hand toggle. I don't know what happened to my screen here, but in any event, is something happening? Representative Dolan, Carey, do you know the sunsetting of the property transfer tax? I wasn't aware of that. I thought it was another couple of years, but I see that in this last note for a talking point. Is there something, any legislation moving to extend that?
Not that I'm aware of, but it's not to suggest that it won't happen or cannot happen.
Yeah.
I imagine the committees of jurisdiction have been paying attention to these deadlines. And I know that that has continued to be a priority for us and for other interested parties. And so I think maintaining that kind of priority may make sense at this stage, but I am not, at this point in time, not aware of a bill. Typically, though, both on the House and Senate, they pass miscellaneous bills to help do some mostly housekeeping, but this could be one of those topics that could be addressed in that or some of the other funding proposals.
Got it. Thank you.
Wayne?
Yes, question for Carrie. Would you know if this flood resilient communities, the $5 million annual appropriation, would that be to go to fund the state portion of the match from the FEMA funds? Because I understand once they hit that $120 million number this month, then if they get approval from the president, then their match goes from 75 to 90%. Is that the intent of that? Or if not, how would they cover that? Because my understanding, if it goes to 90, it'd be 10%, probably a 5% local and 5% state match.
It's not really clear at this point in time whether that bill is going to see any movement. So that would be a question for the committees of jurisdiction.
Okay.
I know that we are the only state in the region that offers a portion of the non-federal match, which for public assistance, as just to help make sure everyone is aware. After a federally declared flood disaster, FEMA covers 75% of the public assistance funds necessary to restore public infrastructure. Think culverts, bridges, roads, that sort of thing that get damaged. And most, if not, we're one of the few states across the country that offer state dollars to help towards that non-federal match, which is at 25%. But you're right, when you hit a certain amount of damages, it can, and this most recent flooding, not the most recent, the July flooding did trigger a 90-10 split for public assistance funding. But this is just to, I think, the interest of the supporters of this bill is to recognize that flooding is our number one natural disaster. The climate impacts are augmenting those sorts of impacts, and the proposal here, as I understand, is to increase state match or state funding that could go towards the non-federal match. There used to be talk about eliminating Vermont's contribution, which typically on average works out to be about 50% of the non-federal match, or 12.5%. And I think at least we would want to, I would think there'd be a strong interest in preserving the type of general funding we already are contributing.
Gary, do you know the bill number yet for that, that bill that includes the Flood Resilient Communities Fund?
I believe that's the administration's bill, and Catherine Sims has sponsored that bill, Representative Sims. I don't have the number in front of me, but I know I know it has been released.
Okay, great, thank you. I also noticed that it was mentioned in that the Central Vermont Legislators Omnibus Flood Relief Bill, which
Oh, yes, you're right. Yeah, that one as well, both of those two bills. And it's a priority for the Vermont League of Cities and Towns when they came in front of appropriations last week.
Wayne?
Yeah, question on H30. If wonder if anybody has any background or details on how that's supposed to happen and who's supporting that bill, I guess, and logistically how that would to do a net gain. Just more out of curiosity.
I mean, I can provide a little background, and actually there's a new bill now called S213, which is basically a combination of H30, H29, and a dam safety bill. I think some people are calling it the climate resilience bill that Senator Bray has introduced. And H30, the net gain policy is something that VNRC and other Lake Champlain Committee, TNC, Audubon, other environmental nonprofits have been working on since about 2019. And it's just basically putting in statute the 2-to-1 mitigation ratio for wetlands that is currently practiced in Vermont, but thinking not just of no net loss, but of what we can do to make up for the loss of wetlands from the past and rectify that by enhancing, mitigating, restoring, and creating new wetlands. So it's that 2-to-1 ratio, as well as more stringent requirements for wetlands mapping, and including NWI mapping, and updating the Vermont Significant Wetlands Inventory layer on an annual basis, and then improved reporting of that. That's sort of a background. I don't know if that's helpful.
This is Carrie as well. I was one of the chief sponsors of H30. And in addition to providing mapping, and thank you for that summary, I recognize that there were two fundamental opportunities in front of us. One is that we know that wetlands serve as sponges and become similar to floodplains that become the first line of defense during flooding when we are hit with large or severe weather events. And so this was to recognize that. The other more practical element to that, and I hope it kind of survives, is that we were sending Vermont dollars from the wetland mitigation funding out of state. So we're part of a more of a regional basis and working through Ducks Unlimited to spend funding. Oh, gosh, I can't remember the actual federal name of this, but when you go through the wetland evaluation criteria and you end up resulting in creating some sort of impact fund, those dollars would be combined with other state dollars and could conceivably be used in the entire northern part of the country, including places like Michigan. So this also was an interest to try to keep those dollars more locally to help offset any sort of impacts to wetlands in the future, that we can actually retain those dollars to do good resilience investments here in the state.
So if there aren't additional comments on this section, I can scroll us down. But Karina, I just saw you on mute. So if you have something to add here.
No, that's all. No, that covers it. Thank you, Carrie.
So moving down to the AIS spread prevention piece, our usual talking point about prevention being the best, most cost-effective defense. I don't know if Meg's on right now and available, but if she had any more information on the potential siting for the high-profile inspection stations, that's something we might be able to include. And then for relevant bills, H51.
So I would maybe think about wording it in a way of highlighting major road arteries that come in and out of the state to leave it a little bit more broad, but there's a cost share program, like a state's assistance program through the Army Corps that's offering 50% cost share on watercraft inspection decontamination stations that are near the border. So, again, we would be looking at maybe a few launch sites on Lake Champlain, on, in the Upper Islands region, and then looking at Missisquoi Bay and Interstate 87, considering it would expand probably outside of the watershed, right? And look at Memphremagog and also consider 91. So those are ones that we have identified, and we have similarly identified some on the New York side of the watershed that would maybe fit the bill. And the Army Corps is exploring to see if, since the Connecticut River is called out and we have a significant portion of the Connecticut River watershed in the state of Vermont, it might also be eligible for the program. So again, if you can keep the language a little bit high level in terms of targeting the high traffic arteries that come in and out of the state and focusing on Lake Champlain and other high priority watersheds or water bodies, that might include something in addition to just invasive plants like zebra mussels or spiny water flea or Asian clam, the small bodied organisms that really need the flushing and the hot water to kill and flush them out of the system to prevent spread. Is that generally helpful enough?
I think so, but I'll let the members weigh in.
Okay.
Wayne?
Yeah, sorry for all the questions. I'm just trying to understand these bills and kind of what's behind them and whether we should collectively, can support them or not support them. So questions on H51, it reads it apply to non-motorized vessels. So would that be to kayaks, canoes? In my understanding, I think we've talked about this a little bit in the past. A couple of concerns we have is that, some of these fees, we're concerned about limiting access or an affordability for somebody that has a kayak or that type of use, and then adding some of these programs become prohibitive because of the costs on the administration side. So, I think we all agree we fully support the AIS and all that kind of stuff. I'm just curious about some of the details about, again, trying to decide whether this is a good thing overall to support or, maybe suggest some tweaking.
And are you speaking generally about H51? Or are you speaking about the decontamination?
H51, Meg,
Okay.
yeah, these descriptions are great. I'm just curious if a few more of the details or sponsorship or kind of what the intent of some of this stuff is.
Yeah, a number of other states have also gone through and struggled with having a sticker fee for watercraft. And it's been really interesting to hear responses from different user groups. We have heard from non-motorized watercraft that they actually do want to be part of the program and to contribute to, sort of the spread prevention effort, even though there is a lesser risk of movement of invasive species on non-motorized watercraft. But in terms of administering H51, I don't know if I can answer that question exactly, but I think just for everybody else's knowledge, and I think Wayne, you're clear on this, but the decontamination stations would be offered free of charge. Out west, they charge by length of watercraft for inspection and decontamination. But the idea here is to offer a staffed station that folks could pull into and get cleaned off and flushed out if they were considered high risk before launching or after retrieving if they're headed to an uninvaded water body.
Is this fee,
Yes,
do you think would be voluntary, Meg? Is that the intent of this, or would this be kind of a requirement as with a registration?
Yeah, you have to vet these out with all the law enforcement and with the state agencies. I mean, currently the transport law is written such that if there is technology made available to be used, that you're supposed to utilize that technology. So if we opened up watercraft inspection stations, I think it would be, the law is about clean, drain, and dry, but I don't know how that would be interpreted. Is it mandatory to pull over as a trailered watercraft and get inspected? In New York, they offer it at the Welcome Center, and it's a voluntary inspection and decontamination, and they get a little card that says that they've been checked. So if they show up and there's a steward, they know that they can go right into the water.
Yes, and this is Carrie. I know the state has been talking about some sort of dedicated fund for, gosh, well over 20 years as the funding seems to be going and trending in the wrong direction. How do you sustain a program that can help curtail the spread of nuisance invasive species? And we all know it affects everything from property values to recreational use to aesthetics to you name it, not to mention the biology. And so this has evolved over the time where initially it was considered only for motorized, but the non-motorized wanted to be part of the solution. I think it was initially designed, the bill was designed to be tiered, so there'll be different prices associated with the watercraft itself, so as to make it affordable. Spreading those costs across everyone and everyone having an interest in the outcome. This is obviously would want a campaign associated with it, but it appears to be an effort to try to keep those administrative costs down by working through the Fish and Wildlife license database. And it also was intended to kind of have all of us in some manner to be part of the solution. And there seemed to be, a lot of interest to try to, at the end of the day, have a dedicated funding source that can really support our waters, and to use this as really an educational opportunity for the public to be kind of engaged in this area. So I know we worked closely with state agencies on swinging back and forth about how and what this would look like. And this is only the starting point of trying to continue with moving forward with some sort of dedicated source.
Martine, you had your hand
Yeah.
up first, and then Mark.
And one other comment, the general funds are, it's going to be tighter and tighter for general funds. The federal funding is, Army Corps funding is dropping, transportation funding is dropping. So this is a means of trying to restore and to provide adequate funding.
Yeah, thanks. I do have a question. I'm mainly here tonight to listen and happy to do so, but process question around what you all see as my role as someone who's representing the Senate on this committee. It seems as though there's going to be lots of discussion around legislation, potential legislation, et cetera. And I'm wondering if, you know, is there a process for one of us to go to the various committees and get the answers to questions, or do folks know how to navigate all of the various documents on the legislative webpage? I'm just wondering if you all could give me a little bit of guidance as to what you would like me to be doing.
Hi, Senator. I don't mean to start first because obviously Lori and others to be speaking. This is Bob Fisher. I've been on for probably 15 years. I believe Lori and Eric predate me. I don't think there's anyone other than that. I've been in favor of being in favor of us commenting on bills. The history of the CAC is they are completely they have never, as far as I know, my history, ever taken a position on a bill or anything. What we all has been asked for continually as we've gone there is actionable items. And I'm in favor of all this. So I'm just saying you're kind of, in my opinion, at this point, just to let you know, when we're saying we're in favor of this bill, we're in favor of that bill. This is more newer territory and whatnot. And I think I'd like Lori or someone else to expound on that. Thank you. Anyone?
Lori?
No. Sure, I'm just trying to come back on. Thanks, and I know Mark, I think, preceded me in raising his hand, and there may be another question there, but can also speak to this as a former chair, of which I'm also a former chair. We have in the past supported some bills. One of the reasons that we don't typically is because we are a quasi-volunteer body. Yes, we can get a per diem reimbursement, but in most cases, we're not, many people are not participating in this as a 9-to-5 job. And so that's in part why, and we just don't have that same legislative presence as the advocacy organizations. That said, like Karina and I, we both serve as CAC members, but we work for nonprofits that do have an advocacy presence. But in addition to that, Karina and I aren't here sitting on the CAC representing our organizations. We're all supposed to kind of remove that organizational hat and come here as just people in general who are interested in lake protection issues. So, Senator, welcome. We're really delighted to have you and excited for your engagement and also your connection to the lake. Whatever you can provide, just like, Carrie has added so much to the conversation because she is in the legislature, we need that and want that from you. And during the time when we are producing our action plan, it's really our legislators who are providing some, reality check on all of this and also trying to assist with the timing. So we really have speeded up our schedule for getting the action plan together in response to that the legislators noting that, we need to be coming out with our materials sooner. And that's why we came up with the action plan. We finalized our action plan for the second half of the biennium prior to 2024, whereas in past years, we've always done it the year that we're in, and despite our best efforts. So I think we have at times supported certain legislation, certainly supported certain policy initiatives. I remember back to there was a proposal for the phosphates, the fertilizer ban for phosphorus. I think that was one of the measures the CAC did support. But if we're supporting a particular bill, we are also just careful to try and get weigh-in and support from the whole committee. And that's where the timing comes in at times, and it's challenging. So I don't know if I've answered those questions there, but I also I want to give Mark a chance to answer, but I also wanted to come back to the broader recreational issue before we move on, but I'll cede time to Mark now and circle back to recreation if we can.
Thanks, Lori. Hi, Senator. Yeah, and as immediate past chair, everything Lori said and Bob said, I think our work has been in the last few years to really try to get ahead of some of the legislative process on issues and priorities that on legislation that is aligned with our interests, priorities, and action plan. And so over the last years, and we've made a lot of progress, and especially this year, really accelerating the opportunity to engage with legislators beyond just our presentation in January, which is statutory, to deliver our action plan. And then we visit with the governor, lieutenant governor, and other key elected officials. But that's our sole job. And what we've been trying to do is to get a little more engaged, and typically it's been at the request of our legislative members, because they recognize if we're not talking about it in September, October, November, nothing's going to happen. And so I think this is one of the first times we've really looked to specific legislation and had them listed in this document in order to keep things moving along. The other thing that I think we started an approach on was to really look at it over a series of years so that we start early in the biennium, hopefully that by the end of the second term, we've accomplished something, rather than the one-shot attempts we tried. And I think we found we were just kept saying the same thing and beating our heads against the walls and not participating or advocating. And part of it is, while some of us advocate with a different hat on, how the CAC can actually advocate, because it is part of its role, but also develop advocacy with consensus with 14 of us. So it's been a little bit of a dance, and we I think we've made a lot of progress. And so your role really is helpful in helping us connect those dots and providing whatever feedback we can. And then, of course, your agency and engagement and attendance in meetings to stay connected with all of us. That's been really helpful. So, and then I have a couple comments about the boat inspection, et cetera, if we're going to get back to that.
Thank you all very much. That was helpful.
Carrie, sorry, Karina, can I make a comment about the
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
AAS? So I just wanted to clarify a couple different things that I thought that we were working on, and my apologies for missing so much of the fall. It just felt chaotic, lots of travel and lots of family stuff going on, and I don't know. The timing never worked out to be able to show up at a meeting. So my apologies to everyone. But I think we had a couple of things. One was the consistent funding. And I know there was an issue that the Army Corps challenged our motorboat registration fee system. And there was some talk of changing those motorboat registration fees and splitting them and calling one portion of it, aquatic nuisance or something, because a portion does go to the aquatic nuisance control program. And that would stay in line with the governor's desire to not raise any fees of whatsoever at any kind at any time. So that's one thing. And I think that the opportunity to expand that to all craft that come into the lake, motorized or non-motorized, in state, out of state, is an opportunity to create that. And as Carrie noted, the general fund we're just running into a lot of funding problems. We're going to. And then the second was the I didn't want to confuse the two, but the mandatory inspection certification program and also a high profile inspection station. And, you know, we've got a lot of watercraft inspection locations scattered around the basin. They're not mandatory. And whether or not they should be mandatory, I think is part of the conversation. And then how does it get consistent? And Meg can weigh in on this too. She's keenly aware of it. The other one was as much marketing as the success of and riding on the successes of the inspection programs. But the High Peaks inspection station on 87 had always been a model for us doing something like that. So it's not an afterthought, but it's high profile. I've always thought about it on 89 at the way stations. It's where, it's sort of the heart of the lake access area. And that inspection station is a way to, just like trucks and other inspections, that boats could be periodically called in to be inspected on their way through. It's random because of the date and time. You never know if you're driving up and it's going to be open, but that fits with a lot of the other sort of regulatory enforcement and safety programs we have related to motor vehicles. And I think it's something that could work. I don't know how well it's worked in New York, and we could probably get data on that, but that was another component of it. So I think just some clarification about what I thought were sort of three separate things as part of our talking points.
I'll just clarify that that's still in the document. I just didn't call out the pieces that yeah, we can expound on those talking points to make clearer reference to New York and stuff. I just sort of didn't repeat what was already in the document.
Got it. Thanks.
Lori?
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up about a few points regarding the recreation, noting with regard to particularly the non-motorized craft and fees associated with that. I think, and this comes from a perspective, I just want to note that the Lake Champlain Committee is the home organization of the Lake Champlain Paddlers Trail. So it's a water trail on Lake Champlain for non-motorized craft, with the intention of really protecting that use and opportunity and making sure that low impact uses and human powered uses don't get displaced by faster moving motorized craft. And so I think there's a strong interest, and this, of course, this is a generalization on the part of the non-motorized community in terms of having a say in recreation. And that's where, currently, in terms of the way many of our access sites are funded, like the public access or fish and wildlife access sites and launch sites, there's a hierarchy there because of the way that funding comes down. And so the priority is more on motorized craft rather than non-motorized craft. And so I think that there's certainly, as Carrie was noting, an interest on the part of the non-motorized community in certainly supporting some sort of program, but they want to have a say in how those funds are spent. And that's where they feel left out right now. And then the other thing is really the equity issues. And I think Wayne was referring to those earlier too, just about, making sure that access does not become something that is prohibitive for anyone. The stewards of tomorrow come because they are formed because, they have recreational or certain connective experiences with our waterways. And we want to make sure that we allow for that for all populations. And that's, I think, something that the CAC has been talking more and more about too. And that's why we focused in on the South Lake, where there's a dearth of recreational options, but we also want to make sure that everybody can get to and have access to water and a recreational experience, and that there's not a fee that becomes, prohibitive with that.
Thank you, Lori. Any more comments on recreation?
I have one comment on recreation. This is Carrie again. There is going to be an outdoor recreation day at the legislature. I think it's around February 16th, but I'm not sure. That will have to be confirmed, but I want to bring that to your attention. And there may be some, be terrific if you all were there at the State House during that celebration.
Carrie, can you, when you get the note of that, if we don't get it other ways, I think, some of us should all have it, but if you can pass that on or get it to Katie, it would be great to have that sent out to all of us.
Do what I can. Thanks.
Okay, moving on to ag. All right, I'll keep moving us forward. Contaminants pollution. We talked about chloride being one of the main ones of concern. We did take out specific reference to PFAS in this edition of the action plan, but I did highlight some of the relevant bills that address PFAS.
I wanted to
And hi,
mention. Oh, sorry, Bob.
no, that's okay. Just to let you know that being in South Burlington, where you have pretty good data collection, chloride really, I am surprised talking to the experts in this field that it's the next phosphorus or Lord knows what. It's more impactful than I thought, but that's my personal opinion as a citizen. Thank you.
And I just wanted to share, for those that don't know, there is Chris Stepanek is leading a road salt conference on Thursday. I don't know if it's too late to register for it, but it's from noon until 5.
Yeah, I shared that before you logged on.
Oh, good. Sorry.
Yeah, I think you can still register. You've just missed out on getting lunch and a parking permit.
And did I also miss that? Is Denise just not available?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're leading this now. Thank you.
Okay. And I feel bad because I have to leave early, but that's okay.
It's okay. We'll get through what we can get through.
It's a joint effort here. Yeah. Any more to add for contaminants?
I do understand there may be in our House Agriculture Committee a neonics ban bill. I'm not sure, but I remember quickly seeing something cross my radar screen today. I want to just flag that. And as you already know, there's a number of PFAS bills out there. The Senate, I think, did the Senate vote out the PFAS bill on And if so, that will be coming over to the House. I think it got voted out the end of last year. Anyway, I have to unfortunately leave for another meeting, but I look forward to reading the notes. Take care, everyone.
Really quickly, just to bring it to federal level, been a new president, CERCLA. I realize Senator Sanders on that, and there's only nothing to be done at the state level. Wastewater and water do not produce that. CERCLA could be devastating to local Vermont communities, and any result to build in. If there's, I mean, I'm totally in favor of CERCLA PFAS, but without a carve out exemption for water and wastewater. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Katie, just as far as the goals for this action plan discussion was to go over these talking points. Do we have yet a sense of dates, or that's not, it's too far out for that still?
Yep, so we, at the last meeting, we talked about targeting the last 2 weeks of January, and what I've learned from my last 2 years of organizing these presentations is that 2 weeks out was about as early as you can start planning them. So Sarah's been in touch with Secretary Moore and the governor's office, the governor's schedule is not confirmed at this time, but I think most of the dates from the 24th, 25th, 26th, 30th and 31st worked for Secretary Moore. So we've got those ones, and I'm going to start doing outreach to the different committees this week. Last year, we presented to the House Committee on Agriculture, Food Resilience, and what else, the rest of the title? Food Resiliency and Forestry, the House Committee on Commerce and Economic Development, House Committee on Environment and Energy, Senate Committee on Agriculture, also spoke with Speaker of the House, the Governor, the Lieutenant Governor, Secretary Moore, and Secretary Tebbetts. We did have 10 minutes with the Senate Committee on Health and Welfare, and we reached out to the Senate Committee on Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs, and Senate Natural Resources, but we're not able to secure presentations with those two committees. It's my goal this year to get us in front of Senate Natural Resources, since it's been a few years since that's happened. So hoping that Senator Brock said he would do some outreach on that so we can get in front of that committee. I guess of those committees I mentioned, and I can put them on the screen, wondering which ones people are hoping to get in front of this year. And again, I think we'll have to take a similar approach to how we have the last few years, where there's hybrid presentations over multiple days. And I did want to discuss at this meeting if the committee was interested in doing a legislative day again, because for 2025, because we'll need to get that request in this month. So I know it's a lot, so I'll share this with the different committees.
Did we do the legislative day last year? Is that just
that was
before
multiple
COVID? Sorry, I'm back, you guys.
Oh, good.
I was listening and got most of the conversation. So everybody, thank you. The legislative day was before COVID, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And then once COVID came, then we were on Zoom. And so we could plan, we didn't have to do it in one day because we weren't traveling down. And now it's hybrid. And so the question is do we want to do it in one day, or do we want to spread it out? Right? We
were hybrid last year, at least. I certainly remember sitting with Lieutenant Governor Zuckerman and et cetera.
Yeah. I was on the team. I think I was on Teams.
Yeah, I was the only one there with them, but there was plenty of others I'm always in favor of more in person if possible, but with public health considerations, obviously.
I like the legislative day just because it's easier to schedule. I don't know, maybe it isn't easier to schedule, but I feel like for me, it's easier to schedule.
Even if it's like
It-
2 days, maybe, or however,
It-
but it's nice to pack them in.
Historically, we packed them in, and I'm all in favor of that if that's possible. But obviously, if flexibility, sorry, Bob Fisher, is then I would obviously be more than open to their scheduling.
Well, I can put the request in for 2025, and there's no guarantees that will be selected for that in January. So we can throw our hat in the ring and see what happens and plan from there. But for 2024, that will be the sort of multi-day hybrid setup that we've had the last couple of years. And again, aiming for the last 2 weeks of January. I know Bob and Wayne are out the first couple of days of the week of the 22nd. So we'll aim for times where most of the group is available to present.
And it's Mark, I'm happy to attend in person or do whatever I can to support the presentation.
Katie, this is Wayne. Yeah, I'm actually not out those days.
Okay.
Bob's going down to Boston by himself, I guess. So I kind of like the idea. I know it's probably hard logistically, but I did like kind of pre-COVID where we'd go for a day and, you know, kind of hammer them out. And it seemed to be a little bit easier to plug that day in on everybody's schedules. I understand the logistics of trying to make that work with all the different committees, but I guess whatever works best for everyone.
Yeah, and I'm curious, since I was not around then, how that worked. Did you still went to the committees, or were you just set up in the room and then people came to you as they were interested?
No, we were. Yeah, this is Bob Fisher. We were always. I mean, Lori can obviously answer better than me. Anyone else. It was basically one long day, a really long day, but with a couple outliers. Obviously, if the governor couldn't or something, then we would, accommodate that.
Yeah, we would travel from committee to committee. This is Denise. And it worked really well. It was sort of, I don't know who set it up or how it was set up, because I was never in charge of that. But it was really nice that people were like, oh, the CAC's in the State House. It did mean that there were some committees we didn't get to go see because they couldn't accommodate us on that day. That was kind of the one, drawback a little bit.
Right.
But it was
we also split up too, because we would also do multiple committees during the same hour if need be.
Yep, and then we would all convene. I feel like, didn't we convene for lunch? I feel like one time I might have done it. We all had lunch in the cafeteria.
Yes.
And it was nice because then you could also see your, if you wanted to go say hi to your representatives from, your community, you could go say hi to them from your region. But I don't know who set it up. It might have been Michaela. Was that when Michaela was there?
Yeah, Michaela and
Michaela.
Michaela and I think the first year, Katie, didn't we? Was your first year COVID?
Yeah, 2021.
Oh, yeah.
This is Sarah, and I think
Sure.
Bethany Sargent probably also helped set up the legislative day before my time.
Yeah,
she replaced Michaela. Yes.
Right. So Bethany would coordinate that also, and usually accomplished in one day. They felt kind of compressed. And our COVID, when we had it was all, we had great attendance. And I think that sort of shifted our thinking about this hybrid approach. I do think that legislators and committee members, we all seem to appreciate being able to go in person and be able to move around the State House and visit all the committees. It's just the committee rooms are so damn small.
Yeah, I was just gonna echo what Mark was saying. I think it's really important to have a physical presence in the building for a number of reasons, but just, you know, showing up, saying hello to folks, introducing yourselves, getting into committees if you can, and then possibly setting up in one of the rooms upstairs, which of course all should be kind of orchestrated ahead of time, but I think it really goes a long way. So I'm hoping we can make that happen.
Yeah, I think the goal for 2024 is to hopefully have at least, you know, one or, I mean, Bob was the lone member sometimes of the committee representing in person last year. But yeah, where possible, have folks attend in person and those who can't be in person attending virtually. And I think we'll take some more time to think about how we want to approach it in 2025. But I'm just wary of the deadlines that are at the end of this month for certain room reservations for 2025. So I want to make sure that's on our radar too. So I will start doing the outreach to committees this week, and we'll be in touch with the small group that has indicated interest in presenting with some more details as that comes up, and confirming schedules with folks and all that. So folks can look out for some emails on that. But those are the main things I wanted to cover on this subject this evening.
Katie, one request, and maybe you've done this and I missed it, but if you could share the talking points as like a shared document that we could edit, that might be helpful.
Yep, I'll put that in a Google Doc so folks can edit that.
Thank you.
Wayne?
Yeah, Katie, not to jump back. Just to go back to the contaminants pollution, I just got a copy of a document called the PFAS Roadmap. I don't know if you've seen that yet. It's prepared by the DEC. That may be a great document to send out to others, just great background information. It talks a little bit about the kind of the approach with the reduce, identify, protect, encourage. May also be a good candidate for a presentation down the road. So it kind of ties in with the contaminants pollution piece, maybe some of the talking points. I'd be glad to send that to you if you're.
Yeah, I just saw that today for the first time, so it'll be good to follow up on that. Okay, well, if nobody has any additional comments on the action plan presentations, we can move on to the next agenda item. Which I think, Sarah, would now be a good time to go over the reimbursements.
Sure. Are you able to share the document that I sent you, Katie?
Yep.
Thank you.
And I will email this after the meeting.
Yeah, and if there might be some outstanding questions that come up, and we can address those too before sending it out. Hopefully this covers it though. Hold on, okay, so I can we just thought and got feedback that there were questions around the budget and how to submit expense claims, and it's my understanding that I just heard recently from Katie that some folks that have submitted in the past had never received their payment that had been sent to me and that I had submitted. So if that's the case, we can, you know, start anew and make sure that those payments are reimbursed appropriately. So big picture, the Vermont CAC has an annual budget of $6,000. This includes the action plan printing costs, annual retreat, which sometimes are covered by the Basin program, and also the expenses that are submitted for CAC members. And just highlighting, if we had all members attend every meeting and they all submitted their expenses for every meeting, this line would deplete the annual budget. And as mentioned earlier, I started in March 2020. And so, you know, the vast majority of our CAC meetings since then have been remote. And I have, you know, really only received and submitted a handful of expenses from CAC members, and really only from a couple of individuals. Okay, any questions or keep going? Okay, so there's a personal.
I'm sorry. Yes, Bob, real quick. So what are the costs of the printing? I just know historically, and I'm saying from a governmental standpoint, I don't know, I haven't submitted anything in a long time, that if we don't use our budget, that'll be looked at and reduced. Do you know how much was spent on the printing at least? Thank you.
Sure. I can look into that, Bob. I think it's not, you know, it's not $6,000. I think it's a couple $100. And that's written into the statute, the $6,000 annual budget. So I can't speak to, you know, to whether I don't know that the CAC is at risk of losing that $6,000 for not using it, but it is an annual budget.
It has been, trust me. And I'm not saying that obviously I'm all about efficiency, 100%. My only concern, if there was some valid reasons for us to spend more money in the future, I'd hate to see that budget reduced. But obviously, right, if they're only basic expenses are what they are, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry, I have a question. Sorry, do we have, or is someone keeping track of how much we spent on the annual budget on a yearly basis?
Yep, somebody and colleagues of mine in the business office in DEC.
Okay. So do but we don't have that number for 2023 yet.
No, I don't have that number, and I can get it for you, but I can tell you that you have we probably have most of that money.
Okay.
So the printing charge for the action plan hasn't hit yet. And like I said, there's been minimal, you know, or of any successful, you know, expenses charged to it. And then the retreat from July probably did hit this budget, but that was also for, I think, Katie, that was $400 or something like that.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I know that
Can you, sorry, it's Denise.
sure.
Laura, can you clarify what the CAC members should be getting reimbursed for? Like what we can submit reimbursement for?
So you can submit reimbursement for participation in the meetings and for any travel expenses. Hold on a second, Ari.
And participation in a meeting is how much? The reimbursement rate, is that the $50?
I'm sorry, my 5-year-old came to tell me dinner was ready. Sorry. Can you say that again, Denise?
Sorry, what's the reimbursement rate for participants? Because we're not, I mean, I think we did just travel to Burlington. I haven't submitted that yet, but participation in a meeting, is that $50?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I need. Thank you.
Is it, I'm sorry, Spot, just for participation, not actual mileage or anything? Just
Yes.
participation?
Participation and mileage is what we get, Bob.
So the mileage for that event is separate from that $50 or in addition?
Yes.
Yes, in
Yes,
addition
separate.
to.
Okay.
Okay, I did not know. Thank you.
And to be clear, we're allowed to submit for anything, any of our meetings, but if we all submitted for all of our meetings, the budget would be exhausted. Correct?
That's from my back of the envelope math, but Katie made the astute point that we don't always have 100% attendance.
True.
Yeah, it's Mark. That I think in my work on budget and trying to grow our budget or get the agency to allow us to carry over, since so many of us effectively make charitable donations of our per diems or our travel often. But we never have had that opportunity to carry over any dollar amounts. Well, there was a number of years ago, but that seemed to fall apart the last time we brought it up. But the annual budget hasn't changed in the entire time that I've been on the CAC, which is over a decade, I think. Lori, you're longer, probably goes back that far. And I think the basic calculation is just that if they didn't provide for every member to be reimbursed the $50 for the per diem and some nominal travel expenses, it just wouldn't look good for a governor's commission to not have a budget to support that basic expense. So I think that's how they've ended up with that number over time. But in my time, the CAC has never actually participated in budget development with the agency. It's just been, this is what you get.
Well, yeah, Mark, I mean, we have submitted the budget, including these main line items, but in terms of, building a budget or asking for more additional, I think maybe you're saying asking for additional dollars based on the
Right.
goals and business. Yeah.
I think prior to our recent work, Sarah, I don't recall ever submitting a budget with Bethany or Michaela before. So it was mostly just an opportunity. I think when we were working together, mostly an opportunity to seek to have a growth in budget so we could do more community outreach and more connectivity, PR type stuff, and engage folks, or get a chance to roll over so we could accumulate some for some bigger events. So
Is there an opportunity, Sarah, to work with the agency on developing our own budget, or do we get what we get?
I mean, I think, it's two parts, the 6,000, I think part of it is, that right now the CAC doesn't have the history of spending down the annual budget it does have. So I think my impression is that's where the energy should be put first. But I don't know that. I think I'd have to look into that, learn more.
And historically, our expenses were more because a lot of the design work was outsourced long ago. This is like 5-6+ years ago. Design work was outsourced and it wasn't taken up by the Basin program, and et cetera, et cetera. So we are at a place where we're hardly spending 20% of our budget. Just because
Right,
folks tend not to seek reimbursement except, I think, for significant travel.
right. And I think my understanding is there were some nominal fees with space rental when the CAC was meeting in person, and the CAC has shifted to remote meetings for these monthly meetings. And Grand Isle continues, the Gordon House continues to be a great meeting location that is free of charge. So there's there's not a lot of the need for space rentals is diminished.
Yeah.
So I think we can go through this these bullets here in terms of how to submit a personal expense claim. And just as a reminder, Katie had sent out a call about a year ago, along similar lines. So hopefully this isn't brand new to folks, that this option is available to all of our CAC members. And so up at the top, we have, there's a personal expense claim that Katie can distribute. It needs to be completed with the last 4 digits of your social security number. After a lot of back and forth with Karina with a locked PDF version, I don't think Karina's on the line anymore, but I request that folks just do a manual signature so that way I can, or anyone on my team can go ahead and approve and sign your expense claim digitally and then send it for payment. So that's kind of what we need. And we're asking that the personal expense claims be submitted within 3 months of the meeting attendance, and that Katie will compile those claims quarterly to submit to the state of Vermont, and she will also verify the attendance and accuracy. And then below that is just sort of the breakdown across throughout the year. And given that we haven't sent out the reminder requests, Katie and I want to do that on this timeline that you can see on your screen. But we about a week from now, request any submissions over the last year.
And you want those a week, or
what's that, Denise? Sorry.
You want those within the week?
If that's doable, to be totally honest, it's drawing the line in the sand, but need to do that somewhere for all of us, just so that we can stay organized and kind of manage capacity. Does that sound reasonable for folks?
I think so. I think I'm one of those people that submitted an expense and have not been reimbursed yet. So I'll loop back with you on that, Sarah.
Okay. Sounds good, Denise.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I think hopefully this week Katie can send out the expense claim form with these directions, and then we'll make sure that all of those, at the bare minimum, all those steps were taken.
I think this kind of goes into like our recruiting conversation a little bit in terms of like if we are recruiting people, and as we onboard new members, that we make sure that we have a packet of information for them. And I think this should be included in that.
Great.
Just something that we haven't done yet. So we should probably maybe think about that. I don't know do we want to go to the recruiting conversation next? Do people have questions?
I'll add that document and the personal expense claim form to the CAC webpage, so they're all in the same place. Also, if you lose it in email, you can find it there.
Thanks, Katie. Should we, if there's no questions, we can move on in the agenda.
Good.
It'd be great. Is it the recruiting conversation next, Katie?
Yep. So I'll share my screen again. Last time we talked about a process for recruitment, asking folks to review the member manual, submit a resume and brief letter of interest to me to share with the committee, and then asking them to submit an application through the Vermont Boards and Commissions appointments, and the committee would convene to review the applicants and submit their endorsement for prospective membership. I think at the last meeting we, and Sarah can confirm this, but I think the approach is that we ask folks to submit the resume and letter of interest and let them know they also need to submit an application through the boards and commissions appointments. And then the CAC will submit their endorsement to the Agency of Natural Resources and the governor's office. That's a little bit different than the format we initially proposed, where the CAC would meet, figure out who they wanted to endorse, and then ask those select folks to submit their application through the boards and commissions appointments, just because ultimately the CAC doesn't make the call on those things. So in the spirit of making this more equitable and leaving the final decision to the governor, I think that's the approach that we've determined we need to take. Sarah, can you confirm that?
Sorry, okay. Yeah, Katie, there might have been a misunderstanding, or maybe I'm misunderstanding you now. I think that from my understanding, the state totally approves what the CAC was proposing from our last meeting in terms of its proposed recruitment approach. I do wonder if there's potentially, it might be good to make sure that we look at it from an equity lens. I think that's still worthwhile, absolutely worthwhile regardless, but beyond that, I don't think there's any issues.
I think the one thing that did come up for me when I was thinking about it, if the CAC goes with the approach that we talked about at the last meeting, and I'll pull that one up from the notes. Too many tabs open. The CAC just needs to be prepared to tell folks who've sent in a letter of interest why they're not choosing to not recommend their application for appointment. So that's the only other thing I would consider, maybe having everybody apply and sort of doing the endorsement a little more close to the CAC's, not just selecting one or two folks to apply to the governor's commission maybe takes away some of the, I don't know, not responsibility, but maybe some of the heat that the CAC might receive from folks. So the CAC just needs to be prepared to stand behind their decisions, I would say.
Yeah, Katie, that's a good point, because my understanding is I don't think this CAC can prevent somebody from applying anyway.
No.
Yeah.
Do we know, I thought I saw one application come across. Do we know if there's any more?
Nobody has submitted anything else yet. We also haven't done that organized outreach to prospective members. So my plan after this meeting is to take that sort of one page of recruitment materials and turn it into something that's a little bit more visually appealing that we can share on different platforms to advertise. We discussed having those initial letter of interest and resumes due at the end of February, a subcommittee review of those materials, and then yeah, you can see on the screen sharing the recommendations, and then asking those folks to apply through the governor's site.
Okay. I think, is everybody comfortable with that?
Mark has a hand up.
Oh, thank you. I can't see anybody.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Denise. Forgot you
Okay.
couldn't see a screen. So I was aware there was at least one potential candidate who had submitted through the entire process as of last July.
Oh.
Is that still standing?
I wanted to check in with you about that to see if that person had submitted an application. I didn't. I think that person just applied through the governor's site, but Sarah, I don't know if that's something we can follow up on.
Definitely.
Yeah, Sarah, how does that process work? If someone submits into the governor's and sort of wasn't aware of or didn't reach out to any leadership on the CAC, how would we know? Like,
Let me find out. It's a
Right.
great question, Mark.
Yeah, so I think that's just a process thing, but I do think that that individual still is outstanding with a live application and, you know, certainly in my opinion, has all of the credentials. We have six members that are up for renewal. When I received I thought we were getting re-upped beyond our existing terms, but that's not what happened. So Wayne and Karina and Lori and Eric were all re-upped to 2026 because they had expired terms in February 2023. I received notice of a re-up to 2/28/24, which is what my original term was anyway. And Denise is in the same position. Hillary's in the same. Actually, Denise's shows up as 2/29, so she gets the leap day out of it. Everyone else, Hillary, myself, and Bob, our terms expire 2/28/24. So we have David Mears' position, and one other legacy position still open. I think that's from Jeff Wenberg's probably, or Bill Howland's when he resigned. And then, you know, potentially any of us four being replaced. So just so we're clear, we've got a lot of memberships to fill two anyway, plus depending on what the four who are due end of next month.
Sorry, this is Bob, and without it in front of me, I don't want to waste any time. I received a new certificate and everything within the last 3 months or so, or 2.
I
I
just
don't know
got
what
one.
it says.
Yeah, I think if you look closely, Bob, I
I'm
think
sorry.
I think the date is 2024, so next month.
Oh, I probably should have looked at that. Sorry,
Yeah,
Kate.
next month. And I thought the same thing. I was like, do I even get it? No, I did. I got it notarized. I actually just mailed it yesterday because it was in my car for a week or a couple of weeks, and I finally mailed it.
I
Yeah,
apologize.
I think our intent was to just wholesale re-up everybody so we had less work to do, but it didn't work out that way. So in any event, that's happening also. So I just want to be sure people were aware, based on what I read. Sarah,
So
do
we
you have
all
something?
still have to be re-upped after 2024.
Yeah, Sarah, do you have something about that?
I am, no, but I want, of course not, but I'm sorry. I am happy to work with the members that may need to re-up their terms that are coming up in 2024 in the next month. So I don't know that we need to use meeting time now, but it would be great to touch base with those 4 of you to confirm interest in renewal. And then I'm happy to submit
Okay.
that.
Thank you.
So yeah, and just please go ahead and, feel free to send me, or Katie, what do you think's the best approach for that? Maybe that's.
Yeah, I think if you're gonna email Sarah anything about the CAC, just CC me on that. Sarah, if you think it makes sense for me to compile the info from everyone, I'm happy to do that and send it to you from there, but I would like to be in the loop on this.
No, absolutely agreed. No, I guess I just don't know if those Hillary, is Hillary still on?
I don't know that she was on tonight.
Okay.
I'll put a note out in the meeting follow-up materials, and I'll do a follow-up within the next day since there's some time sensitive stuff, and then another follow-up with the meeting summary. But I'll put all the important stuff in that first email, including that, and then I'll reiterate it in the
Okay.
follow-up.
Thanks.
And just so I'm clear on the approach that we're taking for membership recruitment here, do folks want to do the timeline and approach that's on the screen, or have prospective members submitting their application through the governor's site at the same time as they're submitting their prospective members' letter of interest and resume? Wayne?
Katie, I'm not sure. We don't even have a quorum right now.
Yeah.
I think it's probably okay for some of these discussions. I'm not sure if we should be making any decisions with the group we have left here, but it's my 2 cents.
Is that a new hand, Sarah?
No,
Okay.
I'll put it down.
I
Mark.
got a new hand. I don't know, my sense is I don't see that we're changing much from what we've always done. Is that true? I mean, just thinking Wayne's, I kind of think we should move forward to not delay anything more, but I don't see that we're materially changing much of what we've done, right? If we have an action item, if this is an action item, is to approve a process, are we just doing a better job of writing it down and improving that? Because it seems like it's kind of what we've always done, except for the calendar, the sort of deadlines.
I think the big difference is we're saying that we would make a recommendation. I guess I don't know, have we always made a recommendation to the governor's office or the secretary?
But I think we've always made the recommendation to the secretary. I think often what had happened is we would get interested potential members, have a conversation, ask them to share their information, interest, bio, et cetera, with the committee, and then simultaneously recommend that they, or to let them know that they also have to apply to the governor's online submission form, and then make the recommendation to the secretary.
Wayne, is that a new hand?
Yeah, Katie, yeah, I'm fine with this. I mean, I'm not sure we really need to, it's an action item or anything. Maybe kind of to Mark's point, it's not really a change from what we've always done in the past. It's kind of more formalizing. So, I mean, I'm okay if you're just looking for general input from everybody. I guess we don't need to make it any more complicated.
Got
I
a
put
new
up,
hand.
yeah, I put up a new hand. Yeah, I guess maybe the biggest change is just my understanding is that it's a little bit more of an intentional outreach campaign from the onset. Is that, and with a little bit of a deadline on the end versus it being more of a rolling process. Is that true?
Yeah, Sarah, this is Mark again. Yes, I agree that is actually doing outreach, and rather than sort of looking around in our networks, was a meaningful shift in our approach, especially when you add a DEI Jedi type lens to it. So that's the more significant change, is creating that outreach.
Bob Fisher, I agree. Yep. And also, I'm in favor of it. If that helps at all. Thank you.
Me too. All right,
Denise, I don't know if you have any other comments on this.
No, I agree with everybody. I agree with what everybody's saying. Yep. So I think it's not, the process change was really just recruiting outside of our networks.
Okay, so I'll have some more resources on that in the follow-up materials, and hopefully you can share that to your networks and beyond, so we can do some broader recruitment. There are some various young professionals email lists that I have located, so we can share on there too, and just see who we hear back from as interested parties.
And on that, I'll look into, that one application, potential application, or if there are others, and then reach out with that information. Those would just basically get added to the pool without the outreach.
Thanks, Sarah. So our last agenda item is looking at future meeting dates and topics. We'll have a pretty busy rest of this month with the action plan presentations. I know sometimes we've taken the month that we're doing the action plan presentations off in February. That's typically because the week that we've done those presentations has been the same week that we would meet. So I imagine we'll continue our February 12th meeting unless folks have other thoughts on that. And it sounds like potentially a good topic of presentation is that PFAS roadmap. And Wayne, I know you had sent another potential topic for a presentation with the tactical basin plans to make sure that our priorities are aligned there as well. We've got a couple of different options to pursue. And I think Denise, Karina, and I and Sarah discussed this, trying to align the presentations with the priorities and the action plan. So
Has that been shared already with the group here at the December meeting?
I believe we did share that. But you can let me know if that's new information.
We were gonna do 5, like we had like 5 or 6 kind of top like months that we had kind of mapped out already. Do you have that?
That's in Sarah's notebook. So hoping, Sarah, that you can send that to me. I took a picture.
Oh, Katie, I did
Right.
send it to you, but
Oh.
let's look into that.
Okay,
Okay.
I don't think I have it, so it could be
Nope.
my overzealous spam filter, being cautious of attachments or something.
And
So
it could have been on my end too, because it was sent as a photo of a, notes that we took in a notebook. So let's look into that. Sorry that you never got it.
no worries. Yeah, and then the other thing that we had discussed was, and we don't have enough people here to make this decision right now, but we did discuss potentially moving the retreat earlier in the year, in May, following the end of the legislative session. So if people have an immediate response to that as to whether that's a good or bad thing to pursue, feel free to share that. Otherwise, we can bring that up at the start of the next meeting to get a read on whether folks want to change that timeline or not.
Katie, remind me, the retreat's been in July the last couple of years, correct?
Yes.
And I think part of that is because it's May, June is like field season for Lori. I don't know if Lori's still on or not, but I do think the May timeline is a better, if we could do, and we have to wait for the legislative season to wrap up. But I know we used to do it that Memorial Day weekend. It was kind of a meeting that we hosted prior to the event at the Tyler place, but that was years ago. We haven't done that in a very long time. A straw poll from everybody who's on the meeting right now.
Whatever seems politically most expedient, that's what I want to do. Whatever's most leverages the CAC.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Bob. I think that's why we had thought May would be a better option from a timing perspective. But we can talk about it at our next meeting. And maybe Sarah and or Katie, by then we could have like kind of a list of meetings, the map out of the year for everybody to review.
Yeah, and I think the order of topics might depend on speaker availability, so there might be some flexibility in that, but we'll have a plan mapped out to share for the next meeting.
Excellent, thank you.
Awesome.
Anything else before we wrap up tonight? Katie, thank you for carrying, I don't know if Karina's gone, but carrying the beginning of the meeting for me. I appreciate that. Did you just hear myself in the
Katie,
background?
I just resent it. Let me know if you
I
didn't
got
get
it.
it.
Thank
Oh,
you,
great.
Sarah.
All right. Well, have a great rest of your month, everybody. Thanks for all your work.